Good morning. We will call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Wednesday, September 20th, 2023 to order. Let the record show we are missing two commissioners, Joe Marie Cattermas and Rick Haugen, and Commissioner Bullinger is joining us via Teams this morning. The first item on our order of business this morning will be the Pledge of Allegiance opening ceremonies. Okay. Moving into our order of business, the first item is the order of business. Is there any changes or corrections to the order of business, Mr. Saluchek?
Good morning, Chairman Frederick. There are no changes to the order of business.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? If not, I would look for a motion to approve the order of business this morning.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the order of business say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 2 this morning is review and approval of the minutes of the August 11th, 2023 meeting. Is there any comments or corrections that we need to make to those minutes?
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bullinger, second by Commissioner Johansson. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will move into our first action item this morning on our regular agenda. This is a final plat FLP-010-2023 to consider a preliminary final plat for the TCB subdivision being the replat of lots 1C and 1D of the irregular plat document 3153-495 and lot 2 block 1 of the Come and Go edition located in the southwest quarter of section 2 township 139 north range 96 west located in the city of Dickinson. The site consists of approximately 4.41 acres. And I think that's Mr. Saluchek is.
Yep, I'll be presenting this
All right,
morning.
sounds good.
Good morning, Commissioners. So the TCB subdivision, this is a minor plat application, and the main reason for the minor plat aspect is there's a access and utility easement to ultimately service the northern and easternmost lots. This area in particular has a fair bit of history behind it, and so I'm going to walk through a few different things. One is related to kind of how we got into adding the existing Come and Go parcel or lot into this. Originally, when we started talking, it was everything but where the Come and Go is currently located. What we identified as we were working through the engineering review for the Quick Lube facility, which is going in just directly east of there, there's actually a retaining wall that crosses over the lot lines. So then we had some discussions with the applicant about shifting some lot lines and those kind of things, and still making sure that setbacks are met. And so they were very easy to work with, and ultimately we were able to get that lot in. So ultimately there's a slight shift in that lot line. The one other kind of unique attribute and part of the development agreement is that when we started looking into, again, through the engineering review for the Quick Lube, we initially identified that there was an existing stormwater management plan for when the Come and Go subdivision was originally platted, and I don't recall when exactly that was. I think it was in the early 2010s. At that time, there was an expectation that a stormwater detention pond be constructed in the southwest corner of the Come and Go lot. And for whatever circumstances that occurred, that actually never was constructed. Working with the North Dakota Department of Transportation and their engineering firms looking at the circumstances for when the East Business Loop was constructed, asked if they had taken that into consideration and ultimately possibly removed that, or we had no evidence to show that that was ever constructed. And ultimately speaking, then what we came to realize was that wasn't even taken into consideration when the East Business Loop was designed. And so, working with their engineering staff, we know that there's sufficient hydraulics and related hydrology to support the stormwater runoff from both the Lucky's gas station as well as the new Quick Lube. But ultimately, it puts that system basically kind of at some limits and those kind of things for major storm events. And so what we had worked with and discussed with the applicant was, as they work to build out either lots 3 or lot 4 of this subdivision, that then they would look at a stormwater report and stormwater management plan for the entirety of this subdivision, and then work with detention for that subdivision. So that's part of that development agreement. So that's kind of how that came to fruition. And then one other thing that we actually noticed as the lot where Lucky's gas station is included, as we were looking at the zoning map, and we hadn't originally looked at that when we were first looking at this because it wasn't a part of the original subdivision, there's a unique rectangular shape that's community commercial. The rest of the property is all general commercial. And so we can't necessarily trace back why that unique shape is located within the perimeter of that Lucky's gas station lot. We don't, based on all the different plating and all the different rezones that have occurred on this property over the last many years, we don't believe that this is necessarily an error of the applicant, or we can't necessarily point to and say that it's necessarily an error of the city. Therefore, my recommendation would be that the applicant just submit a rezone request for that lot 1 to rezone that entire lot to general commercial, and then the city would actually waive the fee for that, because it could be a circumstance, it was our error that there's such a unique sliver of land, and ultimately we don't allow for 2 zoning districts on a single lot. So that's the details there. The development agreement that's in your packet, we did have legal review on that, as well as been working with the applicant, and that was a development agreement that had been utilized on other previous plating applications. So you probably see similarities to what you recently approved with the district development. That was basically the template for this. Oh, I apologize. The development agreement, I apologize, was not included in this. So anyway, if you have any other questions on that, let me know. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
And the applicant is here, so.
Commissioners, any questions for staff regarding the application? All right, if the applicant would like to make any comments, you're welcome to. Okay. You guys are okay with everything that was discussed? Okay. At this time then, since this is a final plat application, we will open a public hearing. If there's anybody in the public that has any comments or concerns regarding the final plat application FLP-010-2023 for the TCB subdivision, please come forward now, or you can call into 701-456-7006. Anyone in the public have any comments or concerns regarding this application? Seeing and hearing none, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
I'll make a motion. I'll move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of FLP-010-2023 TCB subdivision minor plat, subject to the conditions above as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Scott.
Scott, Commissioner Bullinger. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Okay, we will move into item B this morning. This is a final plat application, FLP-011, 2023 present, to consider a preliminary final plat for the Center Point subdivision, being the replat of Lot 6B, Block 3 of the Westridge First Edition located in the south half of Section 31, Township 140 North, Range 96 West of the 5th Principal Meridian, Stark County, located in the city of Dickinson, North Dakota. This site consists of approximately 4.35 acres. Mr. Josephson looks like is handling this one.
Thank you, Chairman Friedrich. Good morning, Commissioner Steve Josephson. This is a request, as stated, for a final plat, a minor subdivision for the Center Point subdivision. It's a replat of Lot 6B, Block 3 of Westridge Edition, of Westridge First Edition. And this is a case of where this lot was originally part of a much larger lot, and this lot was created through the administrative lot split irregular plat process. There is someone who wants to place a auto service, a tire company on that property, but they only want to do it on half of that lot. And this came, just to let you know, this came through the city's pre-application process. And in discussions and looking at the subdivision regulations, this would require a replat of that piece of property. And that's what you have before you today. Yeah, so this would create a replat. The applicant will place their business, I believe it's on the eastern portion of the lot. It's already zoned general commercial, so the two lots meet the minimum lot requirements for the general commercial zoning district, and staff recommends approval subject to the findings in the staff report. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have. And I don't know, is there someone from the applicant who's here today? Mr. Skluzacek? Oh, okay, I think we have somebody, I think they were going to join us virtually.
Okay. Any questions for staff, commissioners, on this application? Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Josephson. If there's anyone online for the applicant that would like to make any comments, you can make a comment, make comments now. Anyone online or for the applicant that would have any comments, they can make a comment regarding this application. Okay, hearing none, we will, oh. Mr. Soren, we almost
Sean
too
Soren,
late.
Houston Engineering. Well, I don't know if that I have any comments, but we are the ones that processing the plat for the owner that's looking to move forward. So I can certainly try and answer any questions you might have regarding the plat.
And
but
their business is gonna go on the lot one, the east, is 1 and 2, that, after it's split, right? They're going on the lot one?
I'd have to look at the plat again. I think that's right.
That'd be the
Yeah.
east, that'd be the easterly lot.
Yes, the east side.
Okay,
That's what's been discussed, yes.
okay. All right, any questions for the applicant's representative? Thank you, Mr. Soren. With that, we will open the public hearing regarding this Center Point addition final plat application, FLP-001, or 011-2023, excuse me. Anybody in the public have any comments or concerns regarding this application? You can come forward now. You can also call into 701-456-7006. Anyone in the public have any comments or concerns regarding this application? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing portion. Commissioners, do you have any questions, or if not, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion. I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of FLP-011-2023 Center Point Edition, subject to the conditions above as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. All right, We'll move to item 4, public issues of concern not on the agenda. If anybody in the public has any items that we did not have on our agenda they'd like to discuss this morning, this is the time. You can come forward to the podium or call into 456-7006. Anyone in the public have any items they'd like to discuss? Seeing and hearing none, we will close that section of our agenda. Moving to section 5, this is commissioners, is there anything that you'd like to bring up that was not on our agenda this morning for discussion? Not hearing any, we will close that portion of our agenda. And then we'll move into our work session item number 6 this morning. This will be the barndominium discussion presented by City County Planner, Mr. Josephson.
Do we have that up on here? Okay, here we go. Thank you, Chairman Friedrich, Commissioners, Steve Josephson. And I was asked by City Planner Galliver to put together a PowerPoint presentation about barn dominiums. I expanded that also to include a discussion about shop houses. I just wanted to start out by saying that that both of us did an extensive search on the internet, could not find anything from local governments in terms of zoning or land development regulations or even definitions of these kinds of structures online. So the material you're going to see comes from the development from the housing industry, and we've cited that on here. So, and it's also come to my attention since then that there are probably some other issues beyond what's in this, but this is just discussing these types. So this is about barn dominiums and shop houses. So what I could find online is a barn dominium is defined as an oversized building that's either a retrofitted barn to home conversion or it's a new one. It's not converted, but it resembles that, where it's a steel building constructed from the ground up, and it's usually on a plot in rural areas where there's a lot of land, but also popping up in areas that are just outside of urban areas. It's a combination of the terms barn and condominium. It's not a condominium though. It's an individual dwelling structure. It's a housing style that you would find on a piece of property. And as I said before, it's not just the conversion of a barn into a residence, but the construction of a new residence that actually looks like a barn from the outside. So it's typically consists of a shell and a large living area. Tend to be simple and rectangular in form with tall roofs and broad open interiors. Most of them are post-frame structures, which makes them different from a conventional home. And while they look like traditional barns on the exterior, most of them have custom living space in them. It's an open layout, so you don't have your typical conventional home where you have your smaller rooms. And I have some examples of that. And in some cases, they're used as also working spaces. But I'm going to go into the differentiation between this and what the industry calls a shop house. So this is an example of what a barn dominium can look like. They come in different. Here are the floor plans. If you need me to slow down long enough, I can also make this available to the commission members after we're done with the presentation. And this is typically what the exteriors look like. As you can see, they're quite large with a high ceiling. And then the other thing we're talking about that's kind of like this, and I understand is part of the reason for this discussion is a shop house, which is also known as a shouse. And that's a building that has a house and a shop under one roof. You know, there aren't any specific dimensions for it. They can come in different sizes. You can see the features. They typically have open floor plans, thicker wall cavities for more insulation, but the key thing is that there's a dedicated workspace and storage area. So it's not necessarily an attached garage, but an actual area where people can perform their work in the way that the literature I've seen is it could be for a hobby or it could be for somebody actually running their business, in that space. Again, they have large ceilings and large kitchens. Both of these are also on concrete slabs too, so that they would have to meet the foundation requirements for the city. As you can see here, as I said, it incorporates workspace or business area into a residential structure, and typically that shop area is more significant an area than the living quarters are. And I've seen a couple different ways that these are done, and I'll show those to you. One of them is where it's like a barn dominium, and then attached to it is a larger house, or I've also seen the one where the work area is on the first floor, and the living area is actually a loft, over it. And this is an example, and this is one where the living quarters is actually over the work area. And that's an example of the floor plan for the first floor, the main level. And then this is the second level, and that's the residential portion of it. And here's another example, and as you can see here, the work area is in that area I believe it's that area that's reddish. And this one, I believe, has living quarters on both the first and second floors. Well, no, we're going to go back to this. As I said, I've been in touch with other local governments in this part of the state. They don't address this in terms of zoning. They'll look at this and say, well, this is a house type. We don't address this in our zoning code, but whatever the structure is, it needs to meet the whatever requirements are in our land development or codes for this. Since the time that I put this together, I've had some other conversations, and it sounds like there's some other issues. It's like one of the issues might be just with conventional homes and the size of the attached garage. And I don't know if we have anyone from the building department that's here, but currently with an attached garage, can't exceed the square footage of the living area and of the house. And then let's see, the other issue, which I guess is separate from this, is just the size of the amount of square footage of accessory structures on detached ones. That's been an issue too, and apparently that's been something there have been a number of instances of that where people have requested variances for that. My observations are a couple. First of all, I think if somebody wanted to do a barn dominium or house, given the size of lots in the city's subdivisions and the city's land, zoning regulations, probably precludes them from being done in city limits. It's probably something that's going to be found more in the extraterritorial zone. The other observation I have is, in the case of what they call a house, is what's the primary use there? If somebody is running a business out of there and that's the larger portion of the structure, is that what people are living there? So what's the primary use? Is it a house that people are running a business out of, or is it a business where people are living in? And I think that's a consideration. That's a consideration too. So I just wanted to share this, and I understand there'll be some discussion afterwards, and we can continue to, whatever the issues are, we can continue to bring information back to the Planning and Zoning Commission and see if there's any sort of action that you would direct staff to take.
Well, I think you hit it on the head. I think we've allowed these obviously in some areas. I'm more in the ETZ probably, or I don't know if there's many of them in town that I can think of, but where we run into the issues is, I think in our ordinance, the garage can't be bigger than the house. So in past, we've only counted the main floor square footage, and then we've expanded that to include the living space above. I mean, there's even some that I know that have been built that would not even meet our regulation right now in the ETZ. So I think we need to figure out what we're gonna do here. A lot size, that minimum that we're gonna allow them on, is that 1 acre, is that 3/4 of an acre?
I think we should talk about that too. 40,000 square feet is the septic minimum. And so
Right.
it's not actually an acre. So if you're talking about an acre, it should actually be 40,000 square feet, not a full acre. Because of that. Because a lot of lots are being put in 40,000 square feet and not a full acre. That's just a
But
thought.
isn't the state looking at changing that?
I don't know about that, but I
40,000 square feet is the minimum for.
is the minimum, but if you
And if you
compare
go to
that
Bismarck, it's more than that, actually.
Okay, yeah, and I know, like, talking to Kevin Pavlish over at the, Southwest District Health, he says, yes, maybe the minimum is 40, but prefers it to be 60,000 in case you have like a septic field. This is a different topic, but in
Yeah.
case there's septic field, failures, it allows for, for expansion and repair.
Well-
The other thing too is the fact that in our city zoning is if you're looking at R1, at rural residential zoning, that's a minimum of 1 acre. So,
Not in the city limits.
in the city for rural residential,
Rural residential.
rural
So I thought you
residential,
said
it's
R1.
yeah, did I? I meant rural residential.
So I mean, is this something that you only allow in RR? I mean, but what if you have 1 acre R1 lot?
Right.
I mean, there are some of those out there. There's some 3 acre R1 lots in Dickinson.
Now, I think also the issue is gonna be too is if this functions primarily as a business in a residential subdivision, is that gonna be an issue that's probably an issue that's worth discussing?
Yeah.
That's worth discussing
I mean,
also.
we'd have to put some restriction there. We once want one of these built and they're running a trucking company out of it or something, but.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, but people are building these things all over. I mean, this is a popular, I get asked about it every month about these type of structures. I mean, I just built one actually for myself up at the lake, so.
I can tell you, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but a few years ago, I did some research for the county because we were running into the same sort of issues. And I know in some of the cities, I think it's in Bismarck, if you're talking about just the square footage of the attached, structure, if it was in one of their agricultural or rural zoning districts, they allowed for a larger one, and I imagine it's probably in some of those larger subdivisions. I don't know what their current ordinance said, but I think as it became more of an urban zoning district, then the size of an attached, accessory structure was, the size was the same as the living area for the, it couldn't be larger than the living area in the house. So I guess it gets into the thing of number one, are there zoning districts where the city wants to allow for a larger, more square footage for an attached garage? And number two, what if you're even if you're in a subdivision that's zoned rural residential, or say there's a 5 acre subdivision out there and people move there for residential purposes, and someone is running a full-time business out of it, is issue of compatibility, is that a good place to put it? And so there's some issues to consider if
Yeah,
you're gonna make any changes.
Yeah, I don't think that them running a business out of it is what we're looking at.
Okay,
I mean, it would be residential purpose with You know, people have a lot of stuff nowadays. They like to just have a big garage, so.
40 below, no wonder.
Yeah.
Kids need a place to play.
Yeah, so, but I think we definitely need to look at a lot size, a zoning district that we allow these in, if it's RR or if it's R1 over a lot, 1 acre. I mean, there would be restrictions on,
If it's business or not business.
yeah, home, the use. I mean, if it's primarily gonna be to run a mechanic shop, then it probably doesn't fit. That's not really what we're talking about, I don't
Mhm.
think. I mean, if it's a hobby, he's doing some woodworking or something for himself, or, that's a different story, but, I mean, we'd have to really watch where that gets approved. And then, the size, what are we gonna allow for the accessory garage size? Are we gonna limit it to the square footage of the house, or are we gonna allow them to build 1,000 square foot living space with a 3,000 square foot garage?
The curb appeal factor in, even if it looks like a house.
I was just,
Shed attached to the house.
I see we have Mr. Schwint from the building department here, and I'd like to ask if he wish,
Build them where they look.
Leonard, do you wish to add anything to this discussion?
Some people utilize them as residential.
Good morning, Leonard Schwint, building official for the city of Dickinson. Our regulations currently in our ordinance actually cover a lot of what's being discussed. If somebody's operating a business out of their home, it'd be addressed by our code enforcement department. So if this came in as a permit, we'd do the math as far as looking at what the primary use of the structure is. The garage meets the footprint of the house. That would be upper floor and lower floor. And as far as an open space, if there's a garage door in there, we'd consider that as a garage. So you can't park a vehicle in the living space or the habitable space. So the biggest concern what we deal with now is the detached structures. A lot of the other communities actually use percentage of lot coverages. So this is a house style, and most of our regulations cover the footprint percentage of lot coverages. So if you have any other questions, I
So-
can try to answer them.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it doesn't matter attached or detached in a lot of other places, it's just how much.
As far as
percentage.
detached, it's a percentage of lot coverage for structures. And as far as the septic system, I concur with Mr. Josephson as his research entails. If you have an issue and you have a minimum size lot of an acre, you could have a lot of expense trying to, and probably holding tanks to contain your wastewater.
Well, right now, they only require 40,000 square feet.
But our code, our zoning code allows for like an acre. So if it was zone R1 and it was 40,000, you could get a septic system on that. But most of our rural properties are a minimum of an acre.
Oh, so if it's RR, you're saying, I get what you're saying.
Yep.
So right now, if I'm building 500 up and 500 down, I can only have 1,000 square foot garage.
Attached, correct.
And then what can I have detached?
Detached depends on the size of your lot. Up to an acre, you could have 1,200. Past acre, for every half acre after that, you get an additional 250 square feet on our current code.
Okay. Is there any questions? I mean, is there any changes that you'd like to see with the stuff we've had coming in?
With a number of detached structures coming into the Board of Adjustment, I believe a percentage or a consideration for other ideas from board members or the public to see what footprint would work for detached structures. A lot of structures, generally if they're 800 to 1,000 over, especially on your acreage, a lot of those buildings are approved by the Board of Adjustment. We did have our last one that was asking for a 1,800 square foot overage was denied. So it would appear, I could do some research for you to see, but generally if you're under 1,000, it's generally approved by the Board of Adjustment.
Are you seeing any of this type structure where they've got 1,500 square feet of living and they want a 2,000 square foot garage?
We have a couple in the ETZ, not in the city of Dickinson. And some of these buildings were permitted by the county prior to the city of Dickinson taking on the permitting process.
So,
And also prior to those places coming into the extraterritorial zone.
Correct.
I mean, so do we see a concern if somebody wants to do that?
I don't see a concern on this building type. I guess I would wish I could, yeah.
You could have a 1,500 square foot slab on grade portion of the house and then have a 40 by 50 garage. That would put you over.
That would put you over. Our current code would, I would say, match. If we want to change something, then we'd be percentages. So then, again, we'd look at what is that use? It would be a residential use. If the anticipation would, somebody would be asking for a special use permit for a home occupation, whether or not I would support that, that would be up to the Planning and Zoning Board also.
You know, one of the things we can do, commissioners, is I had a table that I had done for research for the county. I could look at about accessory structures, both attached and detached. I can revisit that and look at those local governments and see what their requirements are. Knowing, of course, that every city, every local government is gonna have different circumstances, you know, for it, but maybe that would help, is if we can bring back something that it's a comparison between what the city currently allows and what, you know, other cities in this part of the state, you know, do, and that may help, you know, that may help in terms of the city's current, whether or not one wants to consider amending the city's current zoning ordinance.
You know, maybe it's as simple as that you can have a 2,000 square foot attached garage. And
Yeah,
we do have the variance process if they want something bigger than that still. I mean,
The percentages actually make sense. I mean,
Yeah.
Attached or detached, when you're talking about
Just based on
footprint
lot
on a
coverage
lot.
rather than square
Right.
footage of the house.
I know in the county, we amended our ordinance, but keep in mind, that's the county, and we have larger lots there, you know, so right now, it's 1.5 times the building footprint. So, and the reason we did that, people have larger lots, 5, 10, larger than that, and oftentimes they need to have the equipment on there. It's not like you take a riding lawnmower to maintain a 5-acre lot, you know, you need to have, you know, pretty much tractors and other things that a farmer would use to maintain that, you know, so it's a slightly different situation, but I think staff can come back with, you know, comparison of other, you know, other cities in this part of the state, you know, and you know, and share that and see if that, say, out in the,
well, I know
in
there's been a
ETZ.
couple situations where we've had this type of structure built that did not meet our code in the ETZ, is that correct? But it was permitted previously by the county?
Correct.
So, my
In
question
some of those
is-
cases, the detached structure was put on prior to the primary.
Okay, so my question is, does it cause a problem? I
I-
mean, do what, that structure, that got built, is it an eyesore or is it a problem? I'm trying to get away from us having all this red tape when it's not really necessary. If they got 3 acres and they build a 1,200 square foot slab on grade and then want a 2,500 square foot garage, why do we care?
If we
If
went
it's for residential use.
as far as attached, we would have to adjust the code, or they could come in front of the Board of Adjustment for a variance as far as the larger attached. If you want to change the code to allow on a percentage, if you have a larger lot for the attached garage, it's written in our ordinance, we have to enforce what's on the books.
I mean,
So-
we're obviously not gonna do this on a 7,000 square foot lot. We're
Correct.
talking lots that are 40, 50,000.
No, I would
Maybe
con-
100,000 square.
I'd
feet.
concur with that observation.
yeah, I think, Chairman Friedrich, another way to put it, and, you know, as planners, we do this when we talk about zoning, is in our regulations, what is it that we're trying to protect? You know, and, you know, so,
So in city limits, that would still apply.
you know,
I mean, in
if there's
city
a
limit,
regulation in place, you know, what are you trying to
Territorial
protect,
limits
you know?
percentage.
So it's one thing, you know, and I'm not stating the preference one way or the other. I'm just saying I can understand it in the city, but if you're out in the country,
Well,
you
that's,
know,
that's
you
where
know,
I'm getting
what
at.
what are you trying to protect?
I mean,
by
if we have a
doing that?
10,000 square foot lot, we're not obviously gonna let them build a 3,000 square foot shop and a 1,000 square foot residential thing. I mean, it's just not gonna fit on that lot very well, coverage. But I mean, if they've got 2 or 3 acres, I mean, right outside the city limits, I mean, do we care how big the living quarters is compared to the garage? I mean, I don't care, but is there a reason we care?
It's our ordinance currently, and it's our job to enforce the ordinance. So if we want to make changes, I concur with Mr. Josephson. If that's what the wishes of the board are, that's what we'll enforce.
You gotta remember what, and again, I'm not stating, don't read this one way or the other as but that code was when did it would take effect? Was it in 2000, something like that? You know, 1998, you know, and circumstances may have been different, you know, so there may have been circumstances at that time that people didn't even imagine. So, but, you know, we can come back and provide you with, you know, at least some comparison to what other, you know, other local what other cities are doing, you know, and that may be guidance, it may be the basis of a recommendation from staff.
Okay.
So we can come back with that.
That sounds good to me.
I was gonna
Anything
say,
else,
and
Ken?
when you're talking about one, let's say a 3 acre lot, is it gonna matter whether it's attached or it's 10 feet away? When it's,
Well, that's the other thing too,
Yeah.
you know.
that's,
I mean, we'll allow them to build the,
yeah.
up to the size of the square footage, right? So you could have if you have a 2,000 square feet, you can have a 2,000 square foot garage, and then you can have another, 1,200 square foot on a 3 acre lot right now?
Well, the first acre would be 1,200, and then it'd be
Oh, that's
500 for
250
every
over.
acre.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then
So you could
it's-
have a larger detached.
So almost 1,500 in detached then.
Yep.
Or 1,700. Okay.
And that's what I'm saying, whether it's attached or detached, is that really gonna make a difference looks wise if it's 10 feet away from the primary living structure anyway? That's,
Especially if you're on 2 or 3 acres.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else, guys?
So we're saying it would probably be different for inside city limits versus extraterritorial, right?
Well, I think
Maybe
even
stay
in,
with what
yeah,
we-
well, I mean, even in city limits, I think we'd have to consider the lot size.
If somebody were to obtain one that big.
I mean, if you have a city lot that's 2 acres, that's just within the city limits.
Percentage of coverage versus size of your living area.
But yeah, I mean, if it's a 8,000 square foot lot, like I said, we're not gonna let them build 80% of the lot size, you know.
You're probably not gonna find many 2 acre, 3 acre lots. in
There's not a
city
lot.
limits.
I mean,
There
there's-
aren't any. and if
There's
there
maybe a
are-
handful,
If
so.
there are, the builders usually ask to divide them into smaller lots for development.
Yeah, right off of 15th is the only, one of the areas I can think of that those lots are pretty good size. I mean,
Hey Leonard, does that percentage apply to any size lot, or is that usually over a certain size that they start putting? those
Based on
percentages?
your zoning district, R1, R2, R3, those percentages are on the chart as far as building coverage and impervious coverage. So it's addressed in the
Yeah, and I think
City
our-
of Dickinson Municipal
And I
Code.
think RR also has the
Correct.
same building
Yes.
coverage and impervious surface. Which is why I was saying in my earlier remarks that buildings of this size, you know, the house style of this size, you're probably not gonna find them in city, you know, in city limits and the platted subdivisions because of the city's, you know, regulations, but the larger the lot and the further out you get, the large, you know.
okay. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks. Hope this was helpful.
Right, that would be
We
the
will
lot.
come back, we will come back with a comparison chart
Okay,
that we can share with you, and then we can discuss as staff, you know, if we want to recommend any sort of changes or what might look like something you could consider.
sounds good, thank you. All right, with that, that was the last item on our agenda. Nobody has anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this morning.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second, we are adjourned.
I was just in West Fargo, and I stopped in that area with all these small businesses.